Hello everyone, welcome. Today's project, I'm talking about the tyrant within your own soul. You know these tyrannical figures from the art that you love, Lion King, or it could be Star Wars, it could be Lord of the Rings. We all know the tyrannical father figure. We all know the tyrannical dictator. Even in real life, we know of those dictators like Adolf Hitler, Mao, or Kim Jong-un. These people who are tyrannical, it's blatantly evident, right? And so what is the definition of a tyrant? The tyrant is someone who uses power in a cruel and unjust way. Someone who uses power to fulfill their own beliefs and their own values. And why this pertains to you is because we all become tyrannical over ourselves. If you're in a position right now where you're feeling bored or unfulfilled, or things are just stagnant, the days are bleeding into each other, you're craving, you're yearning for something more, and you're turning to drugs, alcohol, pornography, television, your phone, social media for these crutches because you're feeling this unfulfillment, this is a sign that you might be building upon this tyrant within your own being. Because the hero archetype, the archetype opposite to the tyrannical archetype, is the being that generates new information by venturing into what is unfamiliar. So if things are the same, that's a sign that so much of you needs to be burned away or explored, and you need to venture out of the familiar territory you are in to find the meaning that is, well, non-existent currently right now. So let's look at the figures that we are interested in art, right? So Lion King, Scar, tyrannical figure, Pinocchio, the puppet master, or it could be Lord of the Rings. So many archetypes of the tyrant in Lord of the Rings. One in particular is the Steward of Gondor, Denethor. Denethor is a really interesting character because he's this willfully blind leader of Gondor who is entertaining this darkness within his own being. He's entertaining the malevolence within his own heart. And then we see the Borg Queen from Star Trek. The Borg is this species that assimilates other species, and they are a hive, this collective one-minded species that is always looking towards a goal of assimilation rather than building upon something in the spirit of the betterment of other individuals. They're mostly serving their own desires. And so the first point about the tyrant within your own soul is that you could be ego-driven, right? Ego-driven. Well, the tyrant is ego-driven because they only see the side that only fits with what they find valuable or what they believe. They view the world, it's a one-sided story for them. And so they're serving the desires of their own selves. And then they are willfully blind. Everything needs to match with what they desire. So things need to be perfect for them. And if things aren't matching, then they become overly aggressive, they get angry, and they shun the people around them because things aren't matching with what they want. And then the question really becomes, what is your aim exactly? Are you aiming for things to be better? Because it's best to look towards your actions and then infer the motives behind the actions. So what are the outcomes you are getting? And then infer the motives. And so I think it was Jung who said that. The second sign that you may be entertaining the tyrant within your own soul is that you are far too conservative, that you are unable to go beyond the boundaries of your explored space, that you are unable and you are resistant to any outside new information that comes your way. And so you may know someone like this, or you may know that within you. When you go to somebody and you say, well, maybe you should improve on this, maybe you should stop doing that because I can see the consequences it has on you, and man, you got to stop doing that because it's leading you into these pits that you could avoid if you're cognizant and you're aware of this, right? And I think it's also low conscientiousness. That's also a contributing factor as well. They're living in this unconscious space, but they also bark back at you and they're like, well, no, Brad, like, you're attacking me. What, like, I'm good the way I am. I'm perfect. And so that I've separated myself from many people in my life because they're so hyper conservative. They're unable to look inwards towards their own faults and behaviors and admit. That's the thing. That's the key word here. Admit that things could be better, that things aren't working out. And there's such a freedom in that, but they're unable to let go of their own ego. They're unable to let go of the person that they think they are. And they're not willing to kill off the toxic, infected parts of their personality to build upon a newer foundation that could lead them away from these potholes that they keep stepping into. We all know these people. How much are you willing to sacrifice in order for things to be better? And we all see that within ourselves, right? Like, if you just spent that 1 minute every day looking inwards and saying, well, what do I need to sacrifice today in order for things to improve? And man, things will come up, right? And so you are very resistant to these people who are so, they're much of a black sheep of culture. People like Wim Hof, Russell Brand, or Jordan Peterson, or Joe Rogan, or the list goes on. There's so many people. But you know, reading a book can open your eyes to the doorway into a different future. Like, so much of your perception can be shifted the more you explore the areas that you haven't explored, not only within you, but within society. I mean, are you going to listen to one voice, or are you going to dive into books and look towards multiple voices and gather something of value from the multiple voices rather than the one? Because who's to say that one is correct? Look towards many. Be the person that can solve problems, right? And that's a really key point when you're suffering, especially if you're suffering from health anxiety. You could be clinging on to a lot of dead beliefs that just they're not fully dead. It's like, this is really interesting. In Lord of the Rings, Aragorn goes into the mountains, right? Aragorn is the hero archetype. He goes into the mountains to look for the dead king and all the dead soldiers who are not fully dead. These are like ideas that you haven't fully let go of. These are old ideas that you haven't fully let go of and incorporated new ideas. It's like ideas from the 50s that you're still holding on to today. It's like your beliefs about saturated fat, that's outdated, but a lot of people hold on to that notion. Oh, it's bad for your health. It's like, there's not anymore. There's too much evidence now, too many studies now, too many books, too much research now to hold on to that belief. But are you? So Aragorn goes into the mountain. He confronts the dead ideas of culture, right? These beings that are not fully dead, they're not fully gone. And it's like a new idea meeting old ideas. Aragorn's the new king to revivify culture, and he's meeting the dead ideas. And so how do you let go of dead ideas? You have to meet with the new ones and incorporate the new ideas within you, and then you can let go. Like, that's how you let go of trauma. Trauma is a part of you that is still stuck to the past. Like the dead kings in the mountain, they are still stuck to the past. You got to let go of them by confronting them, and then you can make the world out of their pieces and then let them go. They are no longer present. And so the tyrannical person is somebody who holds on to old ideas. Old habits is another way of looking at it. I think of pornography as something that you need to let go of in your 20s. That's what I believe. If you're still looking at pornography in your 30s, in your 40s, your 50s, and your 60s, it's like this part of you that is still clinging to this thing that has aroused you since you were 19, right? Is it really serving you for the better? It wasn't serving me. Pornography caused a lot of snakes to accumulate in my life. And you don't know how many snakes that one thing accumulates until you actually destroy that one thing. And then you realize, well, things are actually a little bit better. Things have improved in my relationship. Actually, I feel more mentally clear and stable, and I feel stronger as a person now that I've conquered this dragon that has been looming over my life. Because that was one thing I realized with pornography, is that as soon as I stopped watching, I realized I could not stop watching, and that this thing had no control over me. So I looked inwards and said, what is this thing that has all this control over me? And I don't want it to have this much power over me, because I feel like I am this soldier of a tyranny. Right? Like, the thing that has gripped me to pornography is the tyrant, and I am this bystander who is a soldier of, or a puppet rather, of this system that needs to be, well, killed off and burned away. And so that this is something to think about. So if things are not currently for you right now, things are not working out, you're bored, you're not feeling satisfied right now, you're anxious, you're depressed, you have to look towards the unknown. Because, like Jordan Peterson says, do you want to be friends with what you don't know, or with what you know? Well, it's better to be friends with what you don't know, because there's far too much things you just don't know. And what do you know? Like, what do you know? So look towards what you don't know. And in what you don't know, that's where the wisdom comes from. That's where you wrestle with this notion of the dragon of chaos. You're wrestling with the thing that's so beyond you, and you gather the wisdom from that, and then you can share it amongst the community once you've returned from this great adventure. I've had many great adventures in my life. Overcoming pornography was a huge adventure for me. Like, I returned from that battle a different person than the person I once was. I returned from this great adventure of anxiety recovery. I've returned from this great adventure of even caffeine recovery, or regulating my sleep and wake cycle, or reading many books, the adventures I've had reading, or visiting new places, or confronting panic attacks and overcoming them and conquering them. These are all great adventures, but I wouldn't have gone on these great adventures if I were to stick with the tyrannical spirit that was embodying me, that has led me to the suffering that I once endured, right? And it got so tyrannical within my soul, to the point where I had to confront the tyrant of my being. So I had to confront me, And I was like, well, I don't like myself. I don't like what I've become. I don't like how I've progressed to this point one step at a time. And then I, at that point, skimmed over my life with a fine-tooth comb and picked apart the steps that it took for me to reach such a deep, dark place that I once was in. And that's where I'm going to leave you today on this video. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Remember to rise above anxiety. I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now. Make sure to leave your comments below, subscribe so that you'll be the first to know whenever I release a new video, and rise above anxiety. I'll see you next time.